It's like being awake in a dream, like watching a movie play out in my mind. Other lives, other versions of me, existing across the multiverse, transmitting a message, a broadcast. Do you remember? We're all eternal, stars wandering through infinity, on a quantum journey back to self. Are you ready? Are you ready?
You are listening to Wandering Star Podcast. This is episode 4, Gold-Plated Lies. If you are joining us for the first time, we're glad that you found us and thank you for being here. It is important to note that each episode certainly stands alone as a wonderfully profound story. However, if you would like to have a deeper experience, we invite you to listen to this podcast in order and allow yourself to join in the mystery as we follow the evolution of a single human being's soul to uncover the power and beauty that lies within each of us. Again, thank you for joining us. Enjoy.
A dark, endless night. Stars blinking ever so slightly. Souls traveling across the great beyond. Hovering and drifting, I float here, below the stars, the in-between, the transient passage through realms. Below, I see my old body, lying peacefully in death, surrounded by family. I know they will be okay. My son, the warrior, holds the light. I feel no attachment here, no reason to stay any longer. It's time to go home. I'm drawn to the stars. Effortlessly soaring over dark waters, the magnetic pull raises me higher. From up here, I see a layer of gray smoke covering the earth, twisting and swirling, thicker, more dense in some spots, thinner in others. The parasite feeding off its host, gaining strength, expanding its reach. I rise higher. Up in the cosmos, a familiar space. The grid appears, glowing, buzzing, electric. Shooting stars move across the soul's highway. Everyone I've ever known is here. A piece of each soul, always here, always at home. I rest here in tranquility until I feel the magnetic pull again. A spark ignited, tingling, exciting. The pull carries me across the glowing grid until it releases, and I drop down. Falling, floating, I see blue, radiant blue. It's water, sapphire blue sparkling water. It's moving gently, a wide river flowing gracefully. I'm standing in it. The currents glide lightly over my feet. My feet are large, masculine, very tan. I reach down and scoop some water in my hands, splash it on my face. It's fresh, warm, and cleansing. I look down and see my reflection. I'm a younger man, in my 20s, wearing a long white robe. The fabric is light and airy. A rope is knotted around my waist. I have long dark hair knotted on top of my head, a white turban wrapped around it, a long dark beard, soft dark brown eyes. The air is very hot and dry. Standing in the clear warm water, soft sand between my toes, I turn to look behind me. In the distance, 3 large pyramids rise from the flat desert. They're mystical, magnetic. Walking out of the water, I realize I'm not alone. An old, frail man holds on to my arm. His footing is unsteady. We walk slowly towards a marketplace near the pyramids. I'm walking him home. The villagers gather around when we arrive. Grateful and kind, they want me to stay here, to sit with them and chat. I want to stay, but I know I must go home. I stand and turn towards the pyramids, 3 of them, almost equal in size, arranged in a V shape, a triangle. I'm instantly struck with the feeling of gold, opulence, lavishness. I see gold jewelry, gemstones, diamonds, piles of gold bricks, significant wealth. Looking at myself, feeling myself in this body, I don't feel wealthy, but I know I live in it. I'm surrounded by it. I feel it. It feels fake. Walking towards one of the pyramids, I know this is my home. It's looming in front of me, captivating, yet ominous. I go inside. I'm greeted by my angry father, towering over me. A long black and gold robe covers his large belly. A black turban is wrapped around his dark hair. His beard is black and bushy. His eyes are like obsidian, furious, cunning. He holds an ornate gold staff in his left hand. He's yelling. His loud, booming voice echoes off the gilded walls of the pyramid. He raises his gold staff, his fist clenched over it tightly, then slams it into the floor in a fit of rage. He can't fathom why I would rather be with the poor villagers than stay in here with him, with his wealthy friends, with the beautiful women he surrounds himself with. I'm his only son, and I'm an embarrassment, wearing shabby clothes, mingling with the poor people, unmarried, uninterested in his riches. I've humiliated him again. He's outraged. I'm indifferent. His wealth is of no concern to me. He turns and stomps over to a throne, heaves himself down in exasperation. He yells for a servant to bring more wine, yells to a beautiful woman to sit on his lap, yells at me to get out of his sight. Walking away, I take in the opulence. I remember where it came from. He's a thief. He's ruthless, savage. He pillaged, he stole, and he killed to acquire this wealth. I feel it dripping from the walls. The blood of the slain, the deceit, the insatiable desire for more. It drips, drowning everyone who lives in here in disgrace. It's because of him my mother is dead. Brutal revenge from a man he once stole from. I hear him yelling again. I hear the nervous footsteps and whispers of the servants. I can feel them cowering in fear. I retreat to my room, the only space I feel comfortable in. It's mostly bare in here. A worn red rug lays on the ground, a modest wooden bed pushed against the back wall. Unlike the rest of the pyramid, my room feels pure, authentic. I sit on the bed and try to tune out the fury raging from my father. Suddenly, an instant knowing, there's something behind the wall. A secret, a forbidden space. Behind my bed in the far corner of the room are some loose clay bricks. I found this a long time ago. My secret, kept hidden, even from my father. Nobody knows I found it. I quietly move the loose bricks and crawl inside, then move the bricks back into place, concealing the secret. It's a tight space. I can barely sit upright. I light a candle. A soft glow lights up the tiny room. The walls in here are covered in drawings, messages from a civilization long ago, messages that are covered up, masked by the gilded sheath, kept secret for centuries. I hold the candle up, illuminating the wall in front of me. A drawing of a sun. This one is much bigger than the rest of the pictures. The source of all life force energy, powerful, vital, a symbol of creation. Another drawing, a fire, flames stretching upward, people dancing around it, celebrating eternal life, connecting to the internal spark of the divine. Next to the fire, zigzag lines, lightning bolts. The lightning carries information from a higher consciousness, a symbol of enlightenment, a moment of epiphany, awakening the seeker. All symbols of energy, the universal creative power. There's something very special about the people that drew these. They knew something we don't, an ancient wisdom that's been lost over time. I run my hands lightly over the drawings, absorbing the information, absorbing their power. The whole pyramid used to be covered in drawings. It still is, but they've all been buried beneath gold-plated lies, kept hidden by someone powerful that didn't want other people to understand this knowledge. I found this secret when I was young. After my mother was killed and escaped from my father, I would hide in here. I didn't fully understand the messages, but I knew they held great wisdom, and I knew my dad must never know I found it. In the corner of this space is the opening of a tunnel. I inch forward on my belly and crawl into it. The tunnel curves down, bending beneath the pyramid. It connects to the other two pyramids. It's dark and narrow. I crawl quietly, slowly, the candlelight guiding my way. The tunnel comes up into another secret room in the second pyramid. Just as small as the space in the other one, I crawl in and sit cross-legged on the dusty floor. There's drawings in here as well. There's a body wrapped up like a mummy, a line of people walking, carrying the dead body on a stretcher. A procession. Above this, a spiral swirl, the never-ending cycle of life, death and rebirth, an infinite journey of expansion and growth. And all around this, drawings of people, with lines above and around their heads. There's a small hole in the wall of the room. I peek out, cautiously. I see a black cat, sitting right outside the secret room I'm in. A protector, a guardian of truth. Servants bustle around the pyramid. I hear music, the flowy, silvery resonance of a flute. I hear lots of voices, laughter. It sounds like a party. There's often parties here. Lots of people dancing, eating, drinking. A wealthy merchant lives in this pyramid. He didn't kill and steal to acquire his wealth, but he's not a man to be trusted. He's possessed by money and power. He doesn't know about the secret room. He doesn't know about the drawings on the walls. He doesn't know I come here. The black cat keeps watch. He's been guarding this space ever since the drawings were made. I ask him why the drawings were covered up. Who would want to keep this knowledge from people? He tells me it was the king. A long time ago, he stole all this information and had it covered up. He knew this was a way to control people, to keep them from understanding their power. I suddenly have a strong feeling of waves, like radio waves tuned to a specific frequency, a forgotten frequency. The rings above the people drawn on the wall. It's antenna, a universal broadcasting code. Like tuning into a radio station, these people knew how to tune into a frequency that we can't access anymore because we forgot it exists. But once you remember, you can tune in. This feels like the original lie. The people that drew these were very advanced. They all had antenna tuned into this sacred frequency. We have antenna too. We're just tuned into the wrong station. Gray smoke blocks the signal, manipulates the frequency. The people that covered this up don't want us to know about the antenna. They don't want us to realize our emotions and thoughts are energy, emitting a specific frequency. And when we focus those thoughts and emotions, we attract energy that vibrates at the same frequency. We are the masters of our lives. We are the creators of the universe. We are far more powerful than we are told. We must harness our energy and emit a signal that punctures the gray smoke, that breaks through the illusions, that broadcasts from the heart. I wonder how I help other people remember the power that dwells within. If I try to show them the drawings, I will be called crazy or killed. I must keep this hidden from my father. I move on to the third pyramid, through the tunnel, up into the secret room. There's a huge bird drawn on the wall. It looks like an eagle, wings spread wide, head turned to the side, the same lightning bolt pattern all around it. He holds a message of expansion, alignment, and strength. This entire pyramid is empty. Everything in here is old and dusty. There's something very special about this pyramid. It holds a lot of energy. The vibration is elevated. I feel my body buzzing just being in here, humming like a tuning fork, a tingling excitement. Something happened to the people that used to live in here a long time ago. They were taken by the king and killed. They understood the power of this pyramid. They understood how to use the vibrations in here to remember their power, to heal themselves, mind, body, and spirit, and access higher levels of consciousness. They were excited about it and started to share it with other people. First, they were called crazy. Then they were captured by the king and he killed them all. The king tried living in here, but he couldn't. He can't even be in here physically. The vibration of the pyramid is so powerful and pure, his darkness can't survive in here. His vibration is too low, his shadow too powerful. So he covered all of the drawings, in all three of them. He keeps this pyramid empty because of the great power it holds. The wealthy merchant and my dad are so blinded by riches they would never discover the hidden knowledge and power written on the walls of their homes. The king knows this. The king harnesses the gray smoke. I harness the energy of the special pyramid. I bring them in at night. I begin sneaking people in through the tunnels into the empty pyramid. If they are ill or suffering, I bring them in here to help them heal, to help them remember, to help them tune into the sacred frequency. Remind them the sacred frequency is love, pure and simple and more powerful than any force in the universe. Then someone I bring into the pyramid tells my dad what I've been doing. I return home through the tunnel. He's waiting for me in my room. Obsidian eyes affirm the rage boiling up inside of him. He can't control his fury, his jealousy. He's the brother of the king. He can't access the special pyramid either. He can't understand the truth that's been hiding in plain sight. Just like the king, the gray smoke took over his body, his mind, lowered his vibration, kept him stuck in jealousy, anger, greed. I'm not afraid of him. He has no power over me. The black cat sits in the corner. I harness the energy of all three of the pyramids. My focus is sharp, acutely heightened. The energy inside me builds with intensity. I let it grow until it's greater than me. It expands, gaining momentum, taking over the room, taking over the pyramid. I see the drawings, the sun, the fire, the antenna, the spiral, the eagle, the lightning. I see them exposed. I see all the messages covering all the walls of the pyramids exposed. And then I watch it drip. The lies dripping from the walls. The gilded sheath melts away, dripping, leaching down the walls, unmasking the truth. My dad watches in disbelief. Momentarily paralyzed, he remains still, watching the deception melt away. A flicker of fear in his eyes as he understands I have much more power than him. Then fear quickly turns to rage, a violent, unhinged rage. He calls me a traitor, lunges towards me, a shiny dagger in his left hand. He stabs me in the heart. I feel no pain. I've moved beyond the physical vessel. He kills everyone I brought into the special pyramid. Another attempt at masking the truth. But beneath the gold-plated lies, beneath the thick gray smoke, the truth, the frequency of love, will always remain.
And we're back again. I am Keisha, the facilitator and guide. I'm joined by my co-host Hillary. She is the writer, the narrator, and the experiencer of these stories that you're listening to.
Hi, everyone. Happy to be back here again. And here we are in Egypt, right? It's funny, like, before I stopped this at a certain point, but I remember, like, for the first 4, 5, 6, maybe, I don't remember how many, I would try to, at first I would, like, try to predict where I'd go, and I'd be like, no, don't think about it. You don't want to, like, have an impression on where you're going, right?
Yeah.
But Egypt, this one was really cool. It was a cool moment when I realized where I was, because I had no idea at first. When I came in, it was water again, but it was a large body of water, but it was really clear that it wasn't the ocean. And I'm like looking out across the water, like, okay, again, but I think I realized quickly, like, I was a dude again, a man, looking down at my feet. I was like, they're huge.
Yeah.
I remember saying that my feet are really big. And I had this like white kind of flowy robe type thing on. And then I turn around and I see these 3 big pyramids right there. So it was pretty clear to me at that point where I was. It's like, oh shit, there's pyramids. And then I started like walking out of the water and realized that I actually had an old man with me that I was, I guess, like guiding back to his home. It seemed to me like this was a situation where there was some sort of like maybe like a marketplace or, you know, like a small kind of a town square situation. And that's where it was like the commoners lived, right? The poor people. And so I walk this old man back there. And like when I'm there, the people that lived in that area obviously wanted me to stay and hang out with them. Like they obviously liked me and I enjoyed them. And I remember feeling like I truly wanted to stay. Like I would much rather have hung out with those people than go back to my home and hang out with my father. And so, but I like knew that I couldn't and I had to go. And I had this feeling then of looking at this one pyramid and just being like, ooh, I think that's my home. Like, I think I live there. And, yeah, when I got over there and went inside, I'm greeted by this like fiery, rageful man, my father, this like big portly man screaming at me. And he's pissed at me again because I was off hanging out with like the poor people and I'm constantly embarrassing him because he wanted me to be chilling with his like wealthy friends. And, you know, here I am, like I want nothing to do with what he's got going on. Right. I'd much rather be hanging out with the poor people. It was like some serious Jesus vibes there in the beginning.
Yeah.
I honestly remember this weird moment of being like looking at my body and like I had this like, you know, my hair and stuff and I was like, am I Jesus?
From atheist to Jesus himself.
To Jesus. I mean, who knows? But no, definitely not Jesus. Definitely not. But there was a fleeting thought at one point where I was like, could I be Jesus? No, so this pyramid was quite interesting, right? So first of all, the fact that I lived in a pyramid was interesting to me, because I'm not saying like this is absolutely verbatim truth that I lived in a pyramid, but this is the way this showed up. But I remember thinking like, I didn't know people lived in pyramids, right? But in this story, they did. We did. And so the one that I lived in was like, the walls were covered in this like gold plating, right? So like what would have been the clay or stone walls had been covered in this weird gold, like gilded finishing over it, and everything about the place just like, there's just like the feeling of gold. Like before I even stepped foot in there and I looked at the pyramid, I was like, I feel gold. Yeah. I feel this like ridiculous wealth, and it didn't feel cool. Like it wasn't this feeling of like, oh sweet, I'm loaded. It was like, I felt icky about it, you know?
Yeah.
And then I come face to face with my dad and realized pretty quickly, like I had this understanding, this download of information once I was in the pyramid of how he acquired all that wealth. And it wasn't because of years of hard work and entrepreneurship. I mean, I guess you could call it that. Pillaging and murder.
Right.
But entrepreneurship in its own right, I suppose. But yeah, no, it was like I knew that not me, he had robbed and killed and done all this horrible shit in order to get wealthy. And in the middle of all of that, my mom was murdered because he had stolen from somebody that then wanted revenge. And so they killed my mom. So it was pretty clear to me that I couldn't really stand my dad. I don't know why, for whatever reason, I still live there with him. But then I go into my room, and that felt like a space that wasn't really covered in gold and filled with all kinds of, like the rest of the pyramid, there was like women and servants and stuff. And my room just kind of felt like this plain, empty space. And then I was sitting in there, and again, it was like another one of those cool magnetic pull type moments where I just knew like there's a secret behind the wall. I think that's what I said to you the first time I said something. I was like, there's a secret in there. And you're like, a secret? Like, what kind of secret? There's something behind the wall. And so I went in and like figured out there was like some kind of loose bricks or whatever they were. I don't know. Moved a few aside, and then I like crawl into this little space, and it was like barely tall enough for like I was sitting in there kind of like on, with my knees kind of pushed up against my chest looking around. So it was really not a big space at all. Just a space enough for me to sit in there. And you're like, what's in there? And I looking around, and I was like, there's stuff written all over the walls. There's drawings and pictures and stuff. And this was a really cool moment during the session where Keisha had a really good idea. And you're like, do you think if I give you pen and paper, you can draw them for me? And I was like, well, I can't draw like to save my life. I'm a terrible, like nobody ever wants to play Pictionary with me and be on my team because it's that bad. Like even the stick figures are like disformed or whatever.
You did a pretty good job with these.
Well, that's the thing. It was like surprisingly good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was pretty shocked because I thought it was just going to be like a jumbled up mess of stuff that you couldn't really see because I did it with my eyes closed.
Right.
And somehow they all, because I drew them of all three of the rooms I was in, and all of them, you can clearly see what they are.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's not like drawn on top of each other or whatever. So that was really cool and helpful for us to have the drawings as we've gotten later in these. We've been able to go back and look
Absolutely,
at them.
Yeah. There was a moment.
Yeah, so this one.
There was
Go ahead.
There was
sorry.
that little moment where the pen wasn't working, and I remember I had to grab another pen for you. And I couldn't even believe it. When you continued drawing, you were almost at the same spot on the paper. It was really, really wild, honestly.
And I swear I wasn't even peeking.
No, I know
Yeah,
you weren't
no.
peeking. Yeah.
That was pretty cool. I don't know how that happened, but yeah, the drawings aren't bad, and so we've been able to revisit them as we've continued to go through this, which was helpful for me, especially when like writing this story. I just would sit and look at them sometimes and kind of get the feeling from them, as I was drawing them.
Yeah.
And so the first one was, in all of them, there seemed to be like one thing that was the bigger drawing, and then there was a bunch of other smaller things in it drawn around it. And this first one, the biggest one, was this drawing of the sun. And then below that, then there was a drawing of a fire and some kind of people that seemed to be dancing around it. And then sort of like on both sides, all around it, were lightning bolts.
Right.
So to me, those are all symbols of energy.
Yeah, I thought this was really...
This first one.
Yeah, this first one was pretty cool because I think you can make a connection there with the sun and the lightning and the fire. I was interpreting that again as the as above, so below, where you have the sun, and then the lightning is like the transfer of energy, and then the fire below. And
right.
The people also being kind of like the conductors of the energy. That's how I was interpreting it as you were drawing it. And I think it's really awesome because it's like kind of similar to Uluru, where you were before, and
right,
representing the fire and the sun, and it's all very, very connected, and another just an expansion of that understanding, I feel like.
Yeah, right. That's what these all seem to be, just like this continual expansion of lessons learned, and they all show up repeatedly throughout all of these. It's really cool. And the progression, if you will, is perfect. It really is. It's absolutely perfect. Like, there's no way. I always just keep thinking about that. There's no way I could have had any of these later ones come to me earlier, because I would never have understood.
No, definitely not.
Do you know what I mean?
That's why
and never have. Right.
That's why it's important to listen to them in order to, because they really do.
Yeah.
Expand upon one another.
Exactly. It's like you could pop in and listen to one and be like, "Oh, that was kind of cool," but I mean, the whole thing is really just like building upon the last one. So. Yeah, well, they're all standalone stories, and each one has its own cool message. It's definitely, especially once we get a few more into this too, when things get pretty crazy. So, okay, that was the first secret room was all of those symbols of energy, right? And then in that space, I remember feeling another little like, oh, there's something in here. And there was a tunnel, like a little hole in that wall. And so I scooched down this tunnel to that connects to one of the other pyramids. And then I get in that space. And on the walls in this one, there was there was like this big kind of spiral up on one side. And then there was all these people, again, like just kind of like I drew a bunch of stick figures. And then they all had these like kind of like swirls above their head as well. And so to me, when I remember like right after it, I was just like, what? I don't know what exactly it was. But then you and I obviously were dissecting these drawings and these secret spaces for quite some time. I began to then have this understanding that the things that were above the people's heads in this one was actually antenna, essentially. This like human antenna, which I think you could also relate that to the pineal gland, right? Like the third eye, you know.
Isn't this the one that had it was like the Wi-Fi symbol looking thing, right?
This one had the weird Wi-Fi symbol thing in it too. Yeah. Yeah, so there was definitely like, you know, some frequency waves going on in this one. And so to me, this idea of having like this human antenna is actually really important. And something I've come back to a lot recently, just as we were sort of getting ready to talk about this one, I started thinking about this idea of all of us having this antenna and all of us like picking up these frequencies. And so not only are we like all of us, and this is again where I'm going to like bring the grid in here a little bit, where I feel like we're all sort of like on this energetic grid, right? And we all have these antennas connecting us to each other, and we're all transmitting these signals ourselves too. And these signals that are coming from essentially what I feel like is our emotional state, right? So if I'm living in this like frequency of fear and anger and shame and all of these like really low emotions, that is like, that's what my antenna is picking up, right? So then I'm basically on riding this wavelength then of fear, right? Of anger, of all of these low vibe feelings. And that's, again, like we've discussed this before, then that's what's being reflected in my life. And so there's all these different frequencies and these waves. Like at any time you can like choose to essentially tune your antenna, change like it's like changing the dial on the radio station, right? Like first I'm tuned in and it's like I picture it sometimes being like this awful death metal, right? Like that's to me, and no, not knocking anybody that likes death metal, but that's like the worst of the worst for me. I can't stand that shit. So like if I'm feeling all this like negative, nasty shit, right? That's the station I'm going to pick up on, is this like awful death metal. But I have the choice literally at any given second of the day to take that dial and spin it and find something a little bit more pleasing. And so, like we are in control of that antenna. It's not like it's just there and we can't control. Like, no, you can, and literally like any second throughout the day, I can turn the dial, change it, and then change up basically my entire reality.
Absolutely.
And one cool thing I just wanted to say about this, like the antenna thing recently, because this is something I've been thinking about for some reason a lot when I'm meditating. It's like I picture all these different waves, you know, and these frequencies going along, and I'll be like, okay, you know, I want to hop on the frequency of like, you know, just creativity and expression, right? And so actually I'm just going to share a quick story. It's like, you and I, for some reason, were having a very difficult time when we were starting to record our discussion part of this, of finding like our groove, right? Finding the flow that we felt good with. It was like, for some reason, we were really caught up in this energy of being like professional podcasters, which is really fucking weird because we're definitely not. And we're not professional about anything.
Exactly.
So, or like, not that we're not perfect, but you know what I mean? Like, I don't even know where it was coming from, but it was like we were, like, it wasn't authentic. It was like this weird vibe when you would listen to us talking that was like, I don't know. It just wasn't us.
No.
Right. And so we had recorded some of these several times and we kept listening to them and being like, what the hell? Like, it's just not us. And it just felt stiff and it didn't feel like anything I would want to listen to. And so I was thinking, we can't put this shit out there. And so I remember, just thinking about like this antenna and thinking about all of these wavelengths and all of these frequencies and thinking about like this specific frequency where you and I are on there and we're like tuned in together and we're just like you know, all of the self-doubt and fear or whatever that we must have been harboring that was causing us to not be our authentic selves. Like all that shit was gone and we were just like vibing on this wavelength of creative expression. And that kind of, for me, it just like flipped the switch on this whole thing.
Absolutely.
And it was
Same.
like, oh.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So I actually use that a lot. I think that's a cool thing to like think about sometimes, especially in the creative process for me. It's been really helpful to like picture all of these like, you know, these frequencies that people have tuned into throughout history that are, you know, these like absolute geniuses. Like they have to be tapping into something. And if they're tapping into it, like so can we.
Absolutely.
I mean, we're obviously tapping into some crazy shit during the sessions, wouldn't you say?
Of course, yes. And I think we should share a little like the first time that we ever actually hung out together as friends. We went on a hike and like a 9-mile hike, so we were in nature, and our very first time ever truly hanging out, and I was sharing with you this wild stuff. This was in 2018. I was talking to you about these crazy experiences that I was having that involved Tesla, who I never knew who this man was. I mean, I knew very little about him. I knew that, you know, there were these cars named after him and that he had something to do with the AC/DC current of electricity. But I had all of this information coming through that was very much Tesla related. And I was sharing all of this stuff with you. And you were then sharing with me this book that you wanted to write about your life and growing up. And I remember thinking, oh, wow, I would never be able to write like that. Like just the way you were telling me this story was so incredible to me. And later we had talked about how when I was sharing this crazy shit with Tesla with you, you were thinking, oh, that would never happen to me, you know? And so in the moment of it, we didn't realize it. But when I think about this antenna going out there and like I go back to that first hike that we were on together, it's almost like I can see it as we're on that hike, like this energy and this thing putting this energy out there that if you would have told me at that time that we would be doing this together, never, ever, ever would I have imagined that. But now looking back, it makes absolute perfect sense when I think about this,
right?
How this antenna thing works.
Right.
So
yeah, because when you were telling me that stuff, I legit was like, there is no way that I would ever be able to have these kinds of experiences.
Yeah.
And I think that point in that, like, there was a couple years leading up to before this where I was like, I almost wanted to break out of this feeling of like there being absolutely nothing, but I just didn't know where to turn and what to do and where to go. And it was still like you would say, if you said the word God or Jesus to me, I would just get like real cringy, you know, like, oh God, like those words triggered me so deeply. Right. But yeah, there's no way at that time that I could have predicted that in 5 years we'd be doing a podcast about the 13 past life regressions that I've done with you.
Yeah.
I'd be like, shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
But here we are.
Yeah, and it's cool because we it's what happens when two people come together with it's almost like we come together in this antenna thing. It expands to more frequencies. I don't know how to put this into words, but it's like almost like we reach all these different frequencies, and both of our gifts and the things that we are like, we're connecting to these different things individually but together at the same time. And truly it reminds me of one of my favorite things that Tesla has ever said, in I believe, is that the creative source comes from the center of the earth, and that he had been able to tap into that source, but he's never been able to truly understand it. And
Right.
he obviously was very connected to the pyramids, and he definitely had an understanding about this antenna thing for sure. Like he believed that
Yeah.
that the pyramids were built, they were ener- built for energy purposes, really. We won't get into all of that here, but it is very fascinating stuff, because this was one of the, I think this was probably the one where I was like, okay, this is a lot of information that is way beyond just, this is stuff that has to be shared. This is information that needs
Right.
to be shared. In this one, I really knew that for sure.
Yeah. 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 I mean, I love all of them for so many different reasons. This one was really cool. It was like, I don't know. I could still kind of like transport myself back into like creeping around these tunnels of these pyramids. It was like, it's like super cool, like almost like Indiana Jones style shit, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But the only other thing I just want to add about the antenna is I want to bring that gray smoke back real quick.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's like a disruptor to our antennas that like blocks out the signals that we put out, that we receive, as like, if you're like, again, if if you're living in this low state and you're not you're living on that wavelength of fear and anger and all of those things, like, to me that means like you're living in that state that I talked about, where I was just completely consumed by the black, or by the gray smoke, right? Like super cozied up in that blanket. And so my antenna was only picking up like shitty wavelengths, um so I feel like we should just take note of, so this one was like that first pyramid I lived in, and then this pyramid there was another family that lived in there, and the dude wasn't like a murderer like my dad, but he certainly was not a man to be trusted. And I looked out, there was this like tiny hole, and I could look out into the see what people were doing. And the first thing I saw when I looked out the hole was this black cat sitting right outside,
Mm-hmm.
like as if he was, the protector, the guardian.
Yeah.
Um, that black cat, he visits us again. But what do you had something I think that you wanted to say about the presence of that cat? Did you not?
Yeah, I think, well, I don't, for people who don't know, like cats were highly regarded in Egypt, and like, I mean, people were received the death penalty for harming a cat. And cats are symbolize eternity. They're eternal beings, the guardians of truth. They connect us to the spirit realm. And yeah, there was am I missing something?
I feel like that's mostly it, but we wanted to just like make sure we took note of him because
Yeah,
um,
he's quite
we
significant.
might be visited by him later again.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
yeah, that was cool. I definitely got the sense that he was kind of the guardian of truth, I think is what I called him.
I think he's,
Interesting that he was sitting outside the antenna pyramid too.
yeah, and I think it might be fun for people to also understand that we're pretty excited about this too, because even though we go through and talk about these and kind of pull out the main points that we want to discuss in these conversations, we've been really excited to actually record these and go through them in order, because every time that we talk about them, something new comes up. And or there's a deeper understanding about something. And so even like with this black cat, for example, I know right now in this moment that in the future when this cat shows up again, there is definitely a connection to this episode right here, but it's not exactly clear to me just yet. But
but you'll know. You'll know.
But I know that moving through this process of working through these in this way in order, it will make sense by the time that we get to that one. So it's kind of fun for people to know that we're just discovering a lot of this stuff along the way also.
I mean, for me, all of it, yeah. For me, I went in with zero prior knowledge. But what you were just saying too reminded me of the spiral on the wall in this one. So there was the people with the antenna, and there was the Wi-Fi signal things, but there was also just this huge spiral, which to me represents this eternal cycle of life and death and rebirth but also in constant expansion. And so that's what you just said. It's like you if I think I learn a lesson in life, okay, I tackled that, then it's surprise, it's going to show up in another form in a little while to maybe teach me a different lesson about it or whatever. It's just this constant, spiral of expansion. And that's exactly what you said with all of these stories. It's every single time we come back, there's newer understandings and newer, truths or whatever that we pick up on. And that's pretty freaking cool.
Yeah, because it evolves even as our experiences in our current life evolve also. It's really strange. Sometimes we'll share a dream or something that we've had with each other. And we really do believe that these dreams are occurring to help us understand something that's happened in one of these sessions, or it happens in both ways. Sometimes it's future things show up in these sessions, and sometimes it's past, and sometimes these sessions show us something that's going to happen into the future. It's very wild stuff.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
But super, super, super cool. And okay, so then from here, I guess we move into the third final pyramid. We're scooched out of that one, down through another tunnel, and then into the third pyramid. And that one, the main drawing on that one was a bird. And it looked like a picture of a thunderbird, kind of, which is the way that I drew it. That was kind of it. And there was also a lot of lightning bolts in this one, too, around the bird. But the biggest significance in this one seemed to be this, specific special vibration that this pyramid carried. That was, this just really high vibration that was in this. That was, I had told you I got all this information from the cat, I think it was, about why all the drawings were covered up, and they were done by this king a while ago, and that king couldn't even step foot in this pyramid. There was people that lived in there, and they knew how to harness the power of this pyramid to heal themselves and I don't know, sort of transcend reality or something. And this king found out and killed them all, but then he couldn't even step foot in the pyramid, and neither could my dad, because they just were, I'm guessing, just on such a lower vibration that their bodies just couldn't physically handle it.
Yeah. Which is also very significant to what is about to come in the future. It's,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think oh man, there was something I was going to say about, because I was telling you in the session that I could actually physically feel it in my body.
Oh yeah.
The significance of this vibration. I was oh yeah, there's it felt like when someone takes a tuning fork next to you and you kind of feel those vibrations in your body. That's what it felt like being in that pyramid.
Yeah, I remember you were saying your whole body was vibrating.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I've gone back to this pyramid a lot too. So, there's a lot of significance to this pyramid, I believe.
And this is why your dad didn't want you bringing people in here, because he didn't.
Right. Right. That's why the king killed the family that lived there. And then I feel like I knew I had to do something to help, some of the people that I was friends with in the village. And I figured, okay, I could just take them into this pyramid. I could sneak them in at nighttime. And maybe them just being in there, they would be able to sort of like, whatever, either just tune their antennas to a different frequency, or they could heal themselves if they were in, like physically suffering or mentally suffering or whatever. And I think this is like, it's really cool because, there is like, look, I'm no historian and I'm not going to sit here and pretend to know that much about the pyramids. There's certainly a lot of people out there that, do great work in talking about this stuff, and that's definitely not me. But there's also, there's people that like tried to climb to the top of the pyramids, I think before they were before it was banned to go up there, talking about picking up like these crazy electromagnetic frequencies and like being almost shocked at the top of it because of the crazy electric current up there. There's definitely some wild shit going on in these pyramids. Absolutely. For sure. Yeah. So, yeah, is there anything about this one, the vibration part of it, that I missed?
Well, I think that, do you want to explain why we called this one Gold-Plated Lies?
Right. So, yeah, to me, this was like, there's all this truth written all over these walls, right? There's this truth of like, to me, these things all represent like, and I think it's fair to say that the people that built the pyramids were people that were of a much higher civilization than we are now. That, and like knew that we all have these built-in Wi-Fi systems. We're like the smartest computer on earth, but we have no idea because we've always been told that we're not, that we're just these dumb apes that don't know shit, basically. But I don't believe that shit's true. Like, I believe that we are these super powerful people that are all all these fragments of the source of all creation, right? So if that's the case, then we got to be pretty damn powerful. And I believe that we, like if we have the power to create our realities, we have the power to heal ourselves. Things that like we've been told, like, oh, at least for me anyways, it was like nobody ever really told me like, you can heal your body. It was like, no, you have something wrong with you. You go to a doctor and you get a bunch of weird medications that you're supposed to take that most likely make the problem much worse, right? Like, imagine if you're in school and people tell you how to like, heal yourself from shit. I don't know. Like that was never a part of my world when I was a kid. And I'm not like knocking my parents or anybody. Nobody told them that shit either. But, the placebo effect is something I think everybody can agree on, right? I'm getting way off topic here. I'm sorry.
Well, no, I don't think it is off topic. It is the power of belief, and this is just another example of that, because it is very much related to all of this.
Yeah. I think to me it was just like these truths that I have come to discover along this journey about myself and about who I believe we all are and why we're here and what the nature of quote unquote reality is, right? To like is completely different from what I was told and taught my entire life. And so when I think about this, I think about like all of these truths that were on these walls that are covered up by all this gold, right? So like all these lies being, covering up the truth that's literally staring us in the face. And I think that that's a pretty good representation of the world that we live in today, where it's like it's hard. You're like navigating a sea of lies at all times, and it's like you need a lot of discernment to get through this shit and figure out what's real and what's not. And I don't claim to know anything really, just moving through this. But I don't know. When I was writing this one, I was just really feeling like. You have this truth that's written on these like dusty clay walls, right? And then somebody, whatever, this king doesn't want people to know about it, so he covers it up with all this shiny, fancy gold, right? It's like it distracts people, all this wealth dripping from the walls, but it's all a bunch of lies.
Yeah, it's so funny because in this moment where you were realizing that these drawings were all over these pyramids on the inside, and so my interpretation of it as it was happening was that they weren't the drawings weren't actually covered up, that it was energetically not it appeared to be like gold on the walls because of creating a distraction. That was like representative of the distraction because of the fear, the deep fear that had been implanted, or whatever you want to call it, into everyone, so that this man could stay in control of everybody and everything. And so it was to me, the gold was representing the energy of him distracting people so that they couldn't see what was actually there in front of them. Is that accurate, or is that it?
Yeah, no, it's not something I thought of at the time, but that's like the similar understanding that I have had. Since we've gone through this since then.
Yeah, and it's
and again.
Yeah, it's because when you were describing how the gold was like dripping from the walls, it was like a very energetic thing that I like, how I was viewing it in my mind, how I was seeing it was like, wow, like this is the veil is being lifted from you, and you're seeing this truth and this reality that they weren't even, it was the fear that was keeping everything covered, like you said. And I think also we don't know exactly what this is either, but we for sure know that there is a huge significance to gold. And I think a lot of people know that. I know that a lot of people understand that there is something more to gold than we realize. That obviously gold is a conductor. It's used in all kinds of technology and all of these devices and things that we have, and it is, but there's more to it than that, and we know that also. It's kind of like the cat in a sense. It's like we know there's something else that we are even curious to see if something more makes sense, because as far as the gold goes, because it shows up a lot.
It shows up a lot. A lot. That's something we picked up on a couple after this. We were like, wait, there's a lot of gold, and it comes through a lot towards the end again too. So that's something, I mean, it's like, we could be listening to these in a couple years from now and be like, oh shit, it finally came to me.
Yeah.
Who knows?
So if anybody has anything to share with that, again, we really would appreciate feedback, comments, or questions, or anything like that, because gold, I'm thinking about it even more now. Like, obviously it's used in our communication devices and all of these things. And so in our communication devices, and then thinking about it in these pyramids and how it was kind of used to distract. I feel it. I feel
That's exactly.
it was a distraction.
Yeah. Like a dazzling. Right.
Yeah, which is kind of the
Exactly.
opposite of how you would, how I normally think of it. It's like you think of it as this like flashy thing that gets your attention, and which it was, but it's in that way used as a distraction, which is very interesting.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool shit. Yes, and so again, I think maybe just I'll briefly talk about the end of this one, because I think this has a lot to do with what you were talking about with the power of belief. Was like, so my dad catches me sneaking these people in, and then of course kills everybody and kills me, and doesn't seem to have any kind of remorse. And after I die, I remain in this space, and I remember like looking around, and I'm watching him, and he's just kind of like storming around, like he's just pissed. He doesn't care that he just killed his kid or whatever. And there's the black cat sitting in the corner, observing, watching, and then I just start to make this. Oh no, sorry, I jumbled this up a little bit. This happened before I died, not after I died. So before I died, I think I started making all of the gold drip from the walls, and he's watching this, just like having this understanding,
Right.
that like, oh shit, like you're more powerful than me,
Right.
And yeah, there was that like wild look of panic and fear in his eyes, and but I didn't obviously do anything to hurt him, and then he had basically no choice left in his mind but to kill his son. And yeah, that moment in like seeing this, and when I still like I can see it in my mind, and it's pretty freaking cool. Like all of this gold just dripping down the walls of this pyramid.
Yeah, and his
all
rage.
of these-
He was so pissed.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So pissed. So pissed. This like that figure, this this man, there's big significance to this guy. I think it's safe to say.
Yes.
And I think I can say it in this one, that there was a very strong, like I felt like he carried the same energy as that big pirate.
The gold tooth pirate.
Right, the pirate with the gold tooth. Yeah.
Yeah.
And this energy comes back a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot I have to learn from this energy.
Yes.
But yeah, he was pissed. But the cool thing that I felt like through all of this was that I was never afraid of him. Like I knew very well that he would kill me if he found out what I was doing, and I just didn't give a shit.
No, you didn't.
And never acted out of fear of him. I just kind of just didn't really want to be around him and did my own thing. But that in that moment in the end, when he's watching me make all his lies, his gold lies drip off the walls, then he had that realization of like, oh shit, you're actually way more powerful than I thought.
Yeah.
And so of course he had to kill me.
Right. Yeah. Interesting. Very, very interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think like I didn't necessarily piece this part together until I was getting close to writing this, that like we have the three different pyramids, obviously, like the energy, the frequency, and the vibration, kind of each one symbolizing that and symbolizing the 369. So again, just like that spiral, like more layers when we go back to these and we keep like learning new lessons. So I also feel like if anybody's listening and they just like have a different interpretation of this, I mean, there is no single interpretation. Keisha and I always have different ideas of what we think is going on. So I'd also think it would be really cool if anybody has a completely different interpretation of this, to reach out and let us know, because I'm fascinated by how people now how they mean different things to different people.
Right. And the 369 is, there's so much Tesla stuff in here, and um I think that Tesla's energy is very important on the planet right now. And I think that's part of what we were talking about on that hike together. Like, I do believe that Tesla is doing a lot of work right now on the planet to help us. And so the 369 and how that shows up in all of these mathematical equations that have to do with the pyramids, which is just too much for us to get into here. But definitely when Tesla said, if you understand the 369, you understand the laws of the universe, that is absolutely very much connected with the pyramids. And so, you can search that
and the antenna
for sure. 100%.
Yeah. I feel like the antenna method for me during meditation is like a great exercise in manifestation, because you just like picture that desired wavelength of like for example, when we were having that blockage with the podcast, it was like I pictured that wavelength of creativity and like authentic expression, right?
Yeah.
And pictured us just like vibing on it, and put myself in the state of that version of me, and boom, there I was.
Yeah.
So that worked for me. Yeah.
There was something else. My brain is not working right now.
It's all good.
Yeah.
Was it about the 369?
I don't think we can get too much into that. No, I think that, I don't know. We'll see if people join in and give us some more perspectives on this one, because I feel like there's so much in this one, but for both of us, it's like,
it's hard to condense it into like an hour under conversation, because some of the things you really just want to go really in depth into, and it's like, yeah, you can't. But yeah, we really welcome other people's interpretations of this, and especially as we move forward and some of these get even crazier, it's like, man, I'll be really excited. I hope that people will send us their ideas about these, because there's a few I'm thinking of specifically in my head down the road that, like, as I'm writing them, like, I don't even know what the hell's going on. Like, yeah, maybe somebody that hears it will understand what's going on. So.
Oh, I know what it was. It was that these pyramids, I believe that they are, as far as the ley lines and the grid on the earth go, are, I think that the pyramids are the fifth chakra, which is that's what it was. It's the throat chakra. So it's expression, communication, seeking truth, speaking truth, all of that kind of thing is in, this is the chakra of these pyramids. So it's, which is also very much connected to, obviously, what this experience was for you, and these gold-plated lies are, and what happens when we're not speaking truth, basically. because this man's energy, like, he truly couldn't even physically be in that third pyramid. It was like, I remember asking you in the session, what would happen if he were to go in there, and you were like, I think he would just like combust, like he wouldn't even be able, something like that you said, where he wouldn't even
that's what I picture in my head, is just him like combusting.
Right. Because he was just such a liar and not a good dude.
Definitely not a good dude. Definitely not. Him and his brother.
Yeah. So very much communication is the energy of this this area, this part of the planet. So,
Right.
which is
Yeah.
super significant as we move on.
We say that all the time. Sorry. Listeners, you're going to hear us say that a lot, but it's because things just keep getting way cooler and cooler. So, well, I feel like that pretty much sums up Egypt as best we can in this short period of time. So we thank everyone for listening again, and look forward to next week when we have another really cool story, of course, to share. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, everyone. See ya.
Bye-bye.